Buddhist path, unlocking your true purpose. Have you ever paused in the middle of a busy day and asked yourself, is this really what I'm meant to be doing with my life? That quiet question, one that rises between the noise of work emails, daily chores, and expectations, is more than just a moment of doubt. It's an invitation, a whisper from within, calling you towards something deeper, something true. Today, we are taking a gentle but powerful journey through the lens of Buddhist wisdom to explore that calling. Not to chase ambition, but to uncover purpose, the kind that doesn't need applause to feel meaningful, the kind that feels like home. In Buddhism, the idea of Dharma isn't just about teachings or scriptures. It's about living in harmony with your true nature. Your Dharma is your inner compass. It's not what you do for a living, it's how you live in alignment with what's sacred to you. And when you live in your Dharma, there's no pretending, no performing, just peace. But here's the paradox. We often lose our sense of purpose chasing someone else's definition of success. We were told, get a degree, find a job, climb the ladder. And so we did. And yet, why do so many of us still feel lost? It's because the modern world teaches us how to achieve, but rarely why. We become efficient, productive, impressive, but not necessarily fulfilled. Buddhism offers another way. It doesn't give you your purpose. It helps you remember it, because you were born with it, not as a job title, not as a brand, but as a presence, a way of being. Let me tell you a story. Once, a disciple asked the Buddha, "Master, how do I know my purpose?" And the Buddha replied, "Your purpose is not found in seeking outside yourself. It is uncovered in silence, in mindfulness, and in compassion. When your actions bring peace to your heart and joy to others, you are living your purpose." What a powerful truth. So simple. And yet, how often do we chase things that do the opposite? Your purpose doesn't have to be loud or glamorous. Maybe it's the way you listen when someone is hurting. Maybe it's the care you pour into your garden, your family, your art. Maybe it's the quiet joy you feel when you teach, cook, write, or simply show up, fully present. You don't need to change the world to live a purposeful life. Sometimes, being deeply you is the change the world needs most. So how do you begin uncovering your true purpose? Buddhist practice invites us into 3 inner doorways. 1. Mindfulness. Slow down. Pay attention, not just to what you're doing, but to how it feels. What gives you energy instead of draining it? When does time disappear because you're so present? 2. Compassion. Ask yourself, where can I be of service? Not out of guilt, but out of love. Purpose often reveals itself when we shift from getting to giving. 3. Non-attachment. Let go of needing a perfect answer. Let go of comparison. Your path doesn't have to look like anyone else's. The oak tree doesn't envy the rose. Each blooms in its own time. So maybe your purpose isn't a thing to chase. Maybe it's a truth to return to. A way of being that brings you into alignment with who you've always been. In Buddhism, it's said that when the student is ready, the path appears. But often, the path isn't new. It's ancient. It's already within you. You just have to quiet the noise long enough to hear it. If you're still searching, know this. You're not late. You're not broken. You're not behind. You are exactly where you need to be to begin again. Right here. Right now. So take a breath. Not just into your lungs, but into your life. What stirs your soul? What makes you feel alive without needing to be impressive? That just might be your path calling. If this message touched you, take a moment to pause today. Even 5 minutes of silence can be a doorway to something real. And if you're ready to walk the path, not the one laid out for you, but the one that rises from within, you are not alone. Because purpose isn't found. It's lived. May you walk gently. May you live truthfully. May you remember your Dharma. The paradox of purpose. How doing less reveals who you really are. What if the secret to finding your true purpose isn't about doing more? Not about chasing goals, or building resumes, or crossing things off some invisible checklist, but rather about doing less? What if your most powerful direction in life actually begins with letting go? In our world, we are taught from a young age that purpose means productivity, that we find meaning by proving ourselves, by becoming someone in the eyes of the world. Degrees, titles, promotions, followers, and we run harder, faster, filling our calendars, seeking clarity through action. But the Buddhist path offers a different truth, a quieter one. It tells us, before you can know your true purpose, you must be still enough to hear it. There's a story in Zen Buddhism about a student who asked his teacher, "Master, what must I do to find my path?" The teacher replied simply, "First, empty your cup." The student was confused. "But I came to learn, not to empty." The teacher smiled. "How can I pour tea into a cup that is already full?" That story is the paradox of purpose. Most of us are carrying cups overflowing with expectations, our own, our parents', society's. We've filled them with assumptions about what our life should look like, what success should mean, what we should be doing by now. But maybe that's the very thing blocking us from seeing what's already true. Let me ask you something. Have you ever had a moment where you stopped trying so hard, and suddenly things felt clear? Maybe it was during a quiet walk in nature, or a moment of silence after a long cry, or a night where, instead of pushing, you simply let yourself be. And in that pause, something real showed up. An insight, a knowing, a pull toward what matters. That's the paradox Buddhist teachings reveal. True purpose isn't something we force. It's something we remember. It's not outside of you. It's within you, waiting beneath the noise, beneath the pressure, beneath the layers of shoulds you've been carrying. So what does it mean to do less? It doesn't mean becoming passive. It means becoming present. It means making space for stillness, so you can listen to the quiet voice you've been ignoring for years. The voice that says, "This is what makes me come alive. This is what I care about, even if no one applauds. This is where I feel like me." I once met a man who spent 30 years building his career. He had everything he thought he wanted. But one day, standing alone in his office, he whispered to me. I climbed the ladder, only to realize it was leaning against the wrong wall. So he walked away, not out of failure, but out of clarity. Now, he teaches art to children. He makes less money. But he told me, for the first time, I'm not chasing anything. I'm just home in myself. Stillness isn't wasted time. It's sacred space. In meditation, Buddhists often say, sit, breathe, and allow the mud to settle. Because when the water is stirred, we can't see the bottom. But when we are still, clarity returns. If you feel lost right now, maybe you don't need more answers. Maybe you just need to stop asking the wrong questions. Instead of, what should I be doing? Ask, what brings peace to my heart? What makes me feel whole, even in silence? These aren't questions you solve. They're questions you live. And over time, your life becomes the answer. So here's the invitation. Don't rush to figure it all out. Let go of who you think you should be. Make space for who you already are. Start small. 5 minutes of silence. A walk without your phone. Saying no to one more thing that drains you. And trust this. When you stop trying to control the path reveals itself. The paradox is real. You don't find your purpose by doing more. You find it by becoming less distracted and more you. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are exactly where you need to be to begin. So take a breath. Let go and listen, because your true calling isn't screaming. It's whispering, and in the stillness, you will hear it. Sometimes, the most powerful direction begins in stillness. You already have your purpose, a Buddhist insight. Imagine this for a moment. What if the most meaningful purpose of your life is something you already possess? What if it's not out there to be chased or earned or built, but something quietly waiting beneath the noise of everything you've been told you should become? Today, I want to take you into a paradox that sits at the heart of Buddhist wisdom. Purpose is not something you acquire. It's something you uncover. Let's be honest. In our world, we are trained to believe that meaning comes from movement. That in order to find your purpose, you need to do more, strive harder, achieve bigger things. But the Buddhist path turns that idea on its head. It tells us, your true calling isn't waiting in the future. It's buried within the present moment. underneath layers of conditioning, fear, and noise. And maybe that's why it's so hard to recognize. Because we keep looking outside for something that only reveals itself when we turn inward. We live in a time of constant doing. We are surrounded by messages that scream, "Find your passion. Build your brand. Make an impact." And while there's nothing wrong with ambition, it becomes a problem when we confuse achievement with alignment. Purpose isn't about being impressive. It's about being true. And truth is quiet. There's a Zen teaching that goes like this. A student once asked, "Master, how do I find my purpose?" The teacher smiled and replied, "Chop wood, carry water." The student, frustrated, said, "No, I mean my higher purpose." And the teacher responded, "When you are fully present in chopping wood, fully alive in carrying water, you have already found it." That story reminds me of a question I often hear. But how do I know if I'm living my purpose? And the answer I've come to believe, deep in my bones, is this. When what you're doing brings peace to your heart and doesn't betray your soul. When you no longer feel like you're performing. When the doing arises naturally from your being. You're already there. Purpose is not a performance. It's presence. Here's a radical thought. What if you stopped searching? What if you stopped asking, "What should I be doing with my life?" And started asking, "Where am I being most honest with myself?" Sometimes the truest parts of our calling aren't flashy or profitable or praised. Sometimes they look like kindness, or creativity, or quiet care that no one ever notices. But that doesn't make them less sacred. In Buddhist practice, there's a word, svabhava, your essential nature. It's not something you construct. It's who you already are beneath your roles, your fears, your striving. You don't need to create a new self to be worthy. You just need to return to yourself. So how do we begin to uncover what's already within? Buddhism offers us 3 gentle, powerful steps. 1. Be still. Quiet the noise. Sit with yourself without trying to fix or figure anything out. The purpose that belongs to you doesn't scream. It whispers. 2. Be honest. Notice what feels real versus what feels like a performance. Where are you forcing? Where are you flowing? 3. Be kind. Not just to others, but to yourself. You don't need to earn your purpose through perfection. You access it through compassion. You might be thinking, but what if I've wasted time? What if I've gone too far in the wrong direction? Here's the truth Buddhism gently reminds us. There is no wasted time when you begin to wake up. Every path, even the wandering ones, can lead you back home. Purpose isn't a destination. It's a relationship. A daily returning to what feels honest, peaceful, and whole. If you're listening to this right now, and something in you is softening, maybe it's because deep down, you already know what your calling is. Not in words, not in a job title, but in a feeling, a quiet sense of this is right, of homecoming. So let me leave you with this. You don't need to chase your purpose. You just need to stop running away from yourself. Sit still. Listen inward. Be brave enough to trust the voice that doesn't shout but always tells the truth. Because what you're searching for isn't lost. It's you. You already have your purpose. You only need to uncover it. Lose yourself to find yourself. A Buddhist paradox on purpose. Can you truly find yourself by losing yourself? It sounds like a riddle, but it's not. It's one of the most profound, and perhaps unsettling, truths in Buddhist philosophy. Because sometimes, the clearest path to your purpose isn't found by digging deeper into who you think you are, but by gently letting go of everything you were never meant to hold in the first place. We live in a world obsessed with identity. What do you do? What's your 5-year plan? What's your passion? And we answer as best we can, with job titles, goals, personality types, achievements. We wrap ourselves in layers of definition. We become the stories we tell. But beneath all that, who are you, really? Who are you, without the pressure to impress, to achieve, to perform? Buddhism offers a paradoxical doorway into purpose. You don't find your true self by adding more. You find it by subtracting, by loosening your grip on the image you've built, and allowing something deeper to emerge. In Sanskrit, there's a word, anatta, the teaching of non-self. It doesn't mean you don't exist. It means the version of you that suffers, the one clinging to identity, ego, fear, is not the whole story. The more you try to solidify who you are, the more you suffer. But the moment you let go, you create space for something real. I remember a time in my own life where I thought I had everything figured out. I had a plan, a path, a narrative I could tell at dinner parties. But inside, I felt like I was living a script written by someone else. It wasn't until everything fell apart, career, relationships, identity, that I finally stopped asking, who am I supposed to be? And started asking, what if I stopped trying to be anything? And in that stillness, something shifted. Not overnight, but slowly, quietly, truthfully. I didn't find purpose. It found me, once I made space for it. There's a famous Zen teaching. Before enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood, carry water. It's not about doing more. It's not about becoming someone else. It's about showing up with full presence, after you've dropped the illusion of who you think you need to be. So, what does this have to do with purpose? Everything. Because real purpose isn't something you chase. It's something you live into, once you shed the weight of needing it to look a certain way. We are told that purpose is a fixed destination. But in Buddhism, it's a dynamic relationship between your awareness and the unfolding of each moment. You don't find your calling. You respond to it, moment by moment. Maybe your purpose isn't some grand mission. Maybe it's the way you pay attention, the way you bring presence into ordinary things. Maybe it's the quiet feeling that rises when you're no longer pretending, when you're simply being. And ironically, you often get there not by seeking more, but by surrendering more. Here's something worth reflecting on. What if everything you've been taught to chase, clarity, certainty, recognition, isn't the path to purpose, but the distraction from it? What if purpose arises not when you define yourself, but when you dissolve into the moment fully? Losing yourself doesn't mean disappearing. It means letting go of the self that was built from fear. It means releasing the stories that told you you're only valuable if. You must achieve this to matter. You have to prove your worth. The Buddhist path invites us to step outside that loop, to lose the self that's striving, and rediscover the self that's already home. So here's the paradox we arrive at. The more you try to become someone, the further you drift from who you already are. But the moment you stop clinging to identity, stop needing to be important, stop fearing the unknown, you begin to move in harmony with life itself. And in that flow, there is clarity, there is purpose, and there is peace. If you're feeling lost right now, maybe it's not because you're off track. Maybe it's because life is asking you to stop chasing the map and trust the compass inside. Because the version of you that was meant to emerge, the one aligned with truth and meaning, can only come alive when you're brave enough to let the old one fall away. So yes, you can find yourself by losing yourself. And maybe that's exactly what the soul has been waiting for. Let go of who you think you are. Welcome who you've always been. The modern search for purpose. Have you ever had that quiet moment, maybe in the middle of a busy workday, or while scrolling endlessly through your phone, where you suddenly pause and think, what am I really doing with my life? Not just in a dramatic way, but in that subtle, aching way. The kind that whispers, there must be something more. In a world that never stops moving, we've been taught to chase success like it's a race. Climb the ladder, hit the milestones, more money, more achievements, more recognition. But for many of us, when we finally arrive at those so-called destinations, they feel strangely hollow. We check every box, and yet, we still feel lost. So today, I want to invite you into a different kind of conversation. One that doesn't give quick answers, but asks deeper questions. One that doesn't promise instant clarity, but might help you breathe again. Let's talk about purpose, not the one you've been told to chase, but the one that's quietly waiting to be discovered. The noise of modern life. In the modern world, we are surrounded by noise. Notifications, deadlines, expectations. From the moment we wake up, we are sprinting toward productivity, toward achievement, toward something we can't even name. And the strangest part? Everyone seems to be doing it, and no one really knows why. We equate purpose with performance. We think the more we accomplish, the more we'll feel whole. But this belief often leads us to a strange emotional paradox. We become successful, yet spiritually starved. It's like chasing a mirage in the desert. Every time we get close, the horizon moves farther away. The hollow victory of success. Take a moment and think about the word success. What image comes to mind? For most of us, it's external: a house, a title, a bank account. These things aren't bad, but they were never designed to feed the soul. How many people do you know, maybe even yourself, who have everything but still wake up anxious, numb, or quietly dissatisfied? There's a deeper hunger that traditional success can't satisfy. A longing not for more, but for meaning. And that's where this journey begins, not with doing more, but with questioning deeper. The Buddhist mirror. Here's where ancient wisdom meets modern restlessness. Buddhism doesn't hand you a blueprint for finding your purpose. Instead, it gently challenges the very idea of you who is seeking it. That might sound strange, but consider this. What if the reason we can't find purpose is because we are looking for it in the wrong direction? Buddhist teachings invite us to turn inward, not to escape the world, but to see it more clearly. To recognize that we are not just our jobs, not just our roles, not even our thoughts. Purpose, in this view, isn't something you build, it's something you uncover. It's not out there. It's right here, beneath the noise, in the stillness of awareness. A different kind of fulfillment. One of the core insights of Buddhism is that clinging creates suffering. And yes, that includes clinging to an idea of purpose. We say, I'll be at peace once I figure out what I'm meant to do. But in saying that, we postpone peace. We tie our inner well-being to a future condition. Instead, what if we began with presence? What if we trusted that meaning can arise not from grand achievements, but from how we show up in ordinary moments? Washing the dishes with mindfulness. Listening to a friend without judgment. Breathing in, breathing out, with full attention. These aren't glamorous, but they are real. And they anchor us in a truth deeper than ambition. Losing yourself to find yourself. Here's the paradox. The more we try to find ourselves, the more trapped we become in the image of who we think we should be. But when we let go, when we lose ourselves in presence, in service, in love, something unexpected happens. We feel found. Not as a fixed identity, but as a living process. Not as someone with all the answers, but as someone fully awake to the mystery of being alive. So perhaps purpose isn't a destination. Perhaps it's a way of walking. And maybe, just maybe, the most profound calling isn't about what we do at all, but about how open, how present, and how compassionate we are in whatever we do. So if you're feeling lost, know this. You're not broken. You're not behind. You're just being called inward. And maybe, just maybe, the quiet longing you feel is not something to fix, but something to follow. Let it lead you. Not toward more, but toward enough. Not toward certainty, but toward aliveness. Not toward a purpose that fits in a sentence, but one that breathes with your soul. Thank you for being here. And if this message resonated with you, take a moment. Pause. Breathe. And remember, the journey doesn't begin with answers, it begins with presence. Buddhist foundations, beyond the buzzwords. You've probably heard someone mention Buddhism and immediately think of a monk sitting in stillness, eyes closed, fingers touching, surrounded by incense. Or maybe it's a yoga instructor quoting the Buddha between poses. It's easy to reduce Buddhism to buzzwords, mindfulness, karma, letting go. But what if I told you, that's just the surface? Beneath the hashtags and calm aesthetics lies a radical way of seeing life, one that doesn't ask you to believe blindly, but invites you to investigate your own suffering and find a way out. Let's start here. Buddhism isn't just meditation, and it's not just a religion. In fact, you don't even have to believe in anything to begin. Buddhism is a way of looking at life, a lens, a roadmap. It starts with a simple, courageous acknowledgement that life, at some point, in some form, hurts. Not all the time. Not for everyone, equally. But suffering is woven into the human experience. And pretending it's not is often what makes it worse. This is where the Four Noble Truths come in, not as a doctrine, but as a framework. Think of them as a diagnostic tool, a kind of spiritual MRI for the soul. The first truth says, there is suffering. Not just war, illness, or grief, but the quiet ache of comparison. The anxiety of trying to be someone you're not. The subtle disappointment after achieving something and wondering why it didn't fix you. That, too, is suffering. The second truth reveals the cause: attachment. Clinging. We chase what we think will complete us: money, status, approval. And we resist what makes us uncomfortable: failure, rejection, uncertainty. But the harder we grip, the more we suffer. The third truth offers hope. If we understand the cause, we can release it. Not by escaping life, but by engaging it with a different heart. A freer one. And the fourth truth? It's the map. The Eightfold Path. A guide for right living, not in the moralistic sense, but in the wise, practical one. Right understanding. Right action. Right speech. It's not about being perfect. It's about being aware. Here's something powerful. Buddhism doesn't say you are the center of the universe. It says you are part of something deeply interconnected. Your joy, your pain, your choices, they ripple outward. You're not alone. You never were. In the West, we often treat purpose as something we have to chase, like it's hidden out there somewhere, in the perfect job, the ideal partner, the dream house. Buddhism flips that. It asks, what if purpose isn't something you find, but something you live? What if it's not out there, but already here, in the way you speak, listen, breathe, care? Pause for a moment and reflect. What are you clinging to, hoping it will make you whole? What would it feel like to loosen that grip, even just a little? The beauty of Buddhist thought is that it doesn't offer one-size-fits-all answers. It hands you the tools and says, try it. Observe. See what's true for you. It's a practice, not a prescription. So no, it's not just incense and silence. It's a call to wake up in the middle of your ordinary life and realize you already have everything you need to begin again. And maybe that's the most sacred thing of all. Mindfulness and self-discovery, your inner compass. Have you ever sat with yourself, not to scroll, not to plan, not to fix anything, but simply to observe? To watch your own thoughts rise and fall like waves? It sounds simple, almost too simple. And yet, this small act of mindfulness, of becoming a witness to your own inner world, can shift the entire direction of your life. In our noisy, always-on world, it's easy to lose ourselves. Easy to get caught up in the roles we play, the expectations we carry, and the goals we chase. But underneath the surface noise, there's something quieter, more truthful, waiting to be heard. That's your inner compass. And mindfulness is how we learn to listen. Let's be clear. Mindfulness isn't just about sitting on a cushion with your legs crossed, trying to banish your thoughts. That's one of the biggest misconceptions out there. True mindfulness is much more accessible and much more powerful. It's about noticing without judging. It's the practice of turning toward your experience, your thoughts, emotions, body sensations, with curiosity rather than criticism. So here's a simple invitation. The next time you feel overwhelmed, irritated, or distracted, pause. Just for a few seconds. Take a slow breath. Then ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? Don't try to change it. Don't label it as good or bad. Just notice. That's mindfulness. And over time, something begins to shift. The more you practice observing your inner life, the more you start to see patterns. Maybe you notice how you shrink back every time someone challenges you, or how you push yourself to exhaustion chasing perfection. You start to see that certain emotions, fear, shame, longing, keep repeating themselves. But instead of being stuck in them, you begin to understand them. That understanding, that's the beginning of self-discovery. Because here's the thing, you can't change what you don't see. You can't grow into your fullest self if you're still operating on autopilot, reacting from habit or trauma or conditioning. But when you bring awareness to your inner world, you gain choice. You begin to move from reaction to response. You begin to see who you are beneath the noise. And often, what we find isn't what we expect. Some people fear that if they stop striving, they'll lose their edge. That if they stop criticizing themselves, they'll become lazy or complacent. But that's not what actually happens. When you meet yourself with awareness and kindness, something beautiful begins to unfold. You start to reconnect with your natural inclinations, your real desires, not the ones you inherited from others, but the ones that were always quietly whispering from within. Think about that. What do you truly want? Not what's trendy, or impressive, or socially acceptable, but what feels meaningful to you. Maybe it's creativity. Maybe it's solitude. Maybe it's service. Maybe it's connection. These aren't always loud desires, but mindfulness helps you hear them. And here's where self-compassion enters the picture. Because self-discovery isn't always easy. Sometimes what we uncover are wounds, memories we've avoided, beliefs we've internalized, parts of ourselves we were taught to hide. That's why compassion matters. Real transformation doesn't come from judgment. It comes from acceptance. From looking at yourself, scars and all, and saying, I see you. I understand. And I'm still here with you. That kind of inner kindness isn't weakness. It's strength. It's the strength to stop pretending, to stop performing, and to start showing up as the person you really are. I remember a time when I thought I had to be on all the time, smart, calm, productive. But underneath, I was exhausted, disconnected. Mindfulness didn't change me overnight, but it helped me recognize that I wasn't okay. And from that recognition came a gentler way forward, a more honest way. It didn't make life perfect, but it made it more real, more alive. So if you've been feeling lost or numb or like you're just going through the motions, maybe it's time to pause. Maybe it's time to check back in with you. Try this. Find a quiet space today. Sit down. Close your eyes if you're comfortable. Take a breath. And just observe. Notice your thoughts like clouds passing in the sky. Notice your body, tense, soft, tired, awake. Notice your heart. Not to fix anything, just to witness it. That witnessing is an act of love. It's a reminder that you don't have to earn your worth. You don't have to become someone else to be enough. You only have to see yourself clearly and keep returning, moment by moment, with kindness. Because the truth is, your inner compass has always been there. Waiting. Quiet. Constant. It doesn't scream. It doesn't compete. But if you learn to listen, it will guide you, not toward perfection, but toward wholeness. Toward a life that feels aligned, authentic, and deeply your own. And isn't that what we are really searching for? Not more noise, not more achievement, but more truth. So start where you are, with a single breath, with a small moment of noticing. That's enough. That's the path. Compassion in action, purpose through connection. Have you ever asked yourself, what is my purpose? It's one of those timeless questions. It sneaks up on us when we are in between jobs, in moments of stillness, or even during everyday routines that start to feel a little too repetitive. We search, we chase, we strive, hoping one day to wake up and just know why we are here. But what if purpose isn't something you find? What if it's something that's revealed, not through striving, but through connecting, truly connecting, with others? In Buddhist philosophy, there's a beautiful concept called bodhisattva. It means the awakened heart, or more precisely, the mind of awakening. But it's not just about your own awakening. It's about developing a heart that seeks freedom and happiness not just for yourself, but for all beings. That's a big shift. And it changes everything. You see, when we live only for ourselves, for our own success, our own comfort, our own dreams, life can start to feel hollow, even if we get everything we wanted. Have you ever felt that subtle emptiness after achieving a goal? That whisper in the background asking, now what? That's not failure. That's the soul's quiet call for something deeper. Real purpose, the kind that fills you up and spills over into the lives of others, begins when we stop asking, what can the world give me? And start asking, how can I serve the world? And I know, that might sound overwhelming. How can I possibly help the whole world? But I'm not talking about starting a global movement or fixing everything overnight. I'm talking about small moments of compassion, tiny acts of kindness, listening with your full presence when someone needs to be heard, being patient when it's easier to snap, offering your time, your care, or even just a smile. Because the truth is, purpose often shows up not when you're looking for it, but when you're being there for someone else. Let me share something personal. There was a time in my life when I felt lost, like I was floating, untethered, waiting for some sign to show me what to do next. I tried all the usual things, books, workshops, personality tests, but nothing clicked. It wasn't until I volunteered at a local community kitchen that something shifted. It was simple work, preparing meals, serving people, cleaning up. But in those hours, I felt more alive than I had in months. Not because it was glamorous, but because I wasn't thinking about me. I was simply being useful. I was connected. And in that connection, Purpose wasn't a question anymore. It was a feeling. Bodhisattva teaches us that compassion isn't just a nice thing to practice. It's the thing. It's the doorway to a life of meaning. When your heart opens to the struggles of others, not with pity, but with presence, you begin to understand your role in this vast, interconnected web of life. You realize you're not separate, that your healing is tied to others' healing, that your joy expands when you lift someone else's burden. This doesn't mean you ignore your own needs. Self-compassion is just as essential. You can't pour from an empty cup. But when you cultivate compassion inward and outward, something extraordinary happens. You become a bridge, a vessel, a quiet force for peace. And here's the surprising part. When you serve others, not from guilt, not from obligation, but from genuine care, you are transformed. The very act of giving becomes your teacher. You learn resilience, patience, humility. You find strength you didn't know you had. And that sense of not knowing your purpose, it dissolves, because you're living it. Purpose, then, isn't some grand mission you have to figure out in your head. It's something you feel in your heart when your life touches someone else's for the better. So maybe the real question isn't, what is my purpose? Maybe it's, who needs my love today? Where can I show up with kindness? How can I use my gifts, however small they seem, to ease someone's path? In a world that tells us to stand out, compassion invites us to lean in, to be a quiet light in someone's darkness, to listen when no one else will, to show up without needing applause. You don't have to be perfect. You don't have to have it all figured out. You just have to care. And when you do, when your life becomes an offering, not just a project, you'll see that purpose was never really lost. It was simply waiting for you in the eyes of another. Integrating wisdom, a life of meaning. Have you ever looked around, at your routines, your ambitions, even your relationships, and quietly wondered, is this it? Is this what life is meant to feel like? If so, you're not alone. Many of us are waking up, not in the noisy, chaotic way of alarm clocks and deadlines, but in a quieter, deeper sense. We are realizing that success without meaning feels hollow, that movement without mindfulness just makes us tired. We are starting to yearn not just for more, but for something different, something truer. And here's the good news, that something isn't far away. It's already within you. You just haven't been taught how to listen. Today, I want to talk to you about integrating ancient Buddhist wisdom into modern life, not in a monastery, not after you've quit your job or moved to the mountains, but right here, exactly where you are. Let's start small. Because wisdom isn't a lightning bolt from the sky, it's more like a soft breeze that nudges you when you pause. So, what can you do today, right now, to begin living a life of deeper meaning? One simple practice. Begin your morning with awareness, not urgency. Before reaching for your phone, place your hand on your heart. Feel your breath. Ask yourself, what would it mean to live this day with presence? It sounds simple, but the wisdom here is profound. In Buddhism, we often speak of impermanence, that nothing lasts, that all things change. At first, that idea can feel sad, even scary. But here's the hidden gift. If everything is fleeting, then every moment is sacred. Every cup of coffee, every smile, every breeze against your skin, it all matters, because it will never come again. This awareness doesn't require you to become a monk. It asks only that you stop sleepwalking through your day. Another step? Practice compassion as action. Not just as a feeling, but as a way of moving through the world. That person who cut you off in traffic? Maybe they are on their way to the hospital. The coworker who snapped at you? Maybe they haven't slept in 3 nights. You never know what storm someone else is walking through. When you choose kindness instead of reaction, you're not just helping others, you're freeing yourself. You're stepping off the exhausting roller coaster of ego, competition, and judgment. And what you gain instead is peace. Here's a Buddhist teaching I come back to often. Purpose is not something you find. It's something you create, moment by moment, through how you show up in the world. Isn't that freeing? You don't have to wait for a grand calling, a perfect opportunity, or some divine sign. You just have to begin, right where you are. You have to start living the values you admire: kindness, presence, courage, patience. Over time, something beautiful happens. Meaning stops being a mystery. It starts to become your default. Not because your life got easier, but because you started paying attention to what truly matters. You started asking better questions. What can I give today, rather than what can I get? What am I holding onto that I need to let go of? What would love do in this moment? These are not spiritual riddles, they are spiritual tools. And like any tool, they require practice. Some days you'll forget. You'll lose your temper, scroll mindlessly, fall back into old habits. That's okay. Because here's another piece of Buddhist wisdom. The path is not linear. It loops, it circles, it repeats. Progress is not perfection. Progress is the willingness to begin again, gently, without judgment. So if you're watching this and thinking, I've wasted so much time, please don't. Every moment of awareness you cultivate now sends ripples through your entire life. It rewrites the script. It turns even the most mundane moment into something holy. And it leads us to this final invitation. Don't wait to live a meaningful life. Don't wait for the next vacation, the next relationship, the next job. Begin now. Begin by noticing. Begin by breathing. Begin by forgiving. Begin by helping someone without needing credit. Begin by sitting still for 5 minutes and simply being. You don't need to become someone new. You just need to remember who you truly are beneath all the noise. Because when you integrate wisdom, not as theory, but as living truth, you'll discover that meaning isn't at the end of the road. It is the road. And you're already walking it. So take the next step. With intention. With compassion. With joy. The journey is yours.